Throughout this presentation, references are made to Alcoholics Anonymous, AA materials, and helpful insights from AA members. This presentation is not endorsed by any AA member, AA group, or AA as a whole. In the interest of AA's tradition of anonymity, every precaution has been taken to guard the identity of any AA member in attendance.
All right, the last thing that I want to talk about in this discussion is the treatment of alcoholism. Quick review, the allergy to alcohol. There is no treatment for that we know of, certainly not Alcoholics Anonymous. And the alcoholic mind is part B of this, and that's where the treatment does exist, and that's what Alcoholics Anonymous treats, and that's what I want to talk about. The allergy to alcohol, as a quick review, is the idea that the alcoholic ingesting any alcohol whatever can trigger a physical brain chemistry reaction that will inhibit him from having any more sober days in his life, maybe. He may or may not get sober again. Any alcohol ingested in any form. In fact, it says that in the big book, any form, whatever. It could be in food. Now you got some guy telling you, well, it all cooked off. Well, this is the guy that's going to be out smoking dope behind the building in 30 minutes too. So he doesn't know it's cooked off. So, you know, alcoholics, there's alcoholics I know that just do not touch any alcohol, whatever. They ask the waiter, is this cooked with alcohol? Is that stupid or overkill or, you know, it's just the way it is. If the guy's got a disease that's that touchy, maybe better ask. Communion, we already talked about that earlier. But what about other drugs that could trigger this also? I know alcoholics that have told me that the most dangerous place they've been is in the dentist's office because he wants to give them some narcotics every time he does a little something to them. And they're afraid that that could trigger this allergy, and rightfully so. Because I think that we all know some that have passed from us that maybe that's exactly how it started, with surgery or the like. So I know alcoholics that are extremely careful with the use of any kind of narcotic or mood-altering, mind-altering chemicals. And that's probably a smart thing to do. Now, we talked about the allergy to alcohol being the reason that an alcoholic stays sober. And that's usually what he remembers, is that he's allergic to alcohol. But we also talked about that on occasion, there's a strange mental blank spot, and the alcoholic brings back the wrong information as he's trying to decide whether or not to drink, and he has no mental defense, or insufficient mental defense at least. Now, sometimes a person thinks that the only thing there is to alcoholism is the allergy. That's what almost everybody thinks. That's what I talked about in the last session. The alcoholic can think that too, and he can say self-knowledge will save him. Well, the problem is his self-knowledge is not complete. He may have knowledge about himself as having an allergy, but he may not have knowledge about himself having the ism. Now, the treatment for alcoholism is the 12 steps of AA. They're steps of action. They're not steps of sitting and listening and discussion. They're steps of action. The first step of admitting powerless over alcohol is the alcoholic's first action step. Here's what I mean by action. If I go to the gym and I see some guys working out, and I go over there and ask him, you know, they look good. I think the guy looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I go over there and I ask him, how do you do that? He says, well, Monday we do this, Tuesday we do this, Thursday we do this, and Friday we do this, and we take off Saturday and Sunday, and that's what we do. Oh, okay. I go to the next day to a different gym and see some different guys that look good too, and I go ask them, how'd you do that? They say, well, Monday we do this, Tuesday we do this, Thursday we do this, and Friday we do this, and we take off Saturday and Sunday. And it's a different list, but it's roughly the idea. I go to another gym. I go to 90 gyms in 90 days, and I ask them, what are you guys doing to do this? And I've got this list of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday that looks pretty darn good, and these guys look good. And I've been going to these gyms for 90 days, but I haven't done any of this stuff. Do I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger after that? I don't look any different because I haven't actually done what they suggested that I do. I only talked about it. The 12 steps are like that. Now, do I have to believe in weightlifting for it to work? Think about that. Let's say that I don't believe these guys, and they say to me, well, try it. And I say, well, I'll try it, but I don't believe it. And I go to the gym for 6 months, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, do what they say. Am I going to look different after 6 months? I am, and I didn't even believe it. And that's the 12 steps. Sometimes people think that they need to believe in them to do them. I don't think so. Now, I may not be the expert, but I don't think so. I think that it's a matter of doing the steps. Now, I can't get in this period of time, can't get into all of the steps, but we can look at doing the first step. If doing the first step is so important, we can't just skip over the first step thinking the first step isn't really one of the steps, it's just something that we admit and go on to the next thing. Then maybe I'm missing out on the first step. So how do I do the first step? Well, what's the intention? What am I supposed to do? What am I trying to accomplish in the first step? I'm trying to get honest. I'm trying to admit the truth. Is this what my life looks like? Do I have this? Is this what my life looks like? Do I have this allergy? And do I have this blank spot? If that's what the alcoholic is asking himself, then he needs to stop and use some of his experience in the past. But look, the alcoholic has come home 4,000 nights in a row and had an excuse for the wife why this time it was different. And he believes it, she believes it, everybody believes it, that it makes sense that he's drunk again. That's not honest. That's rationalizations. That's excuses. An excuse can be misunderstood too. We use the word excuse as though it means, look what I did to excuse myself so that I could go drink, as though we planned it. That's not what it is. Okay, an excuse is not that the alcoholic tried to make an excuse ahead of time for drinking. An excuse is when the alcoholic comes home after drinking and then he explains what happened that caused it. Whatever happened was what caused it. Whatever happened. It didn't have to be what really caused it, it's just whatever happened. Like, the alcoholic won the game, or he lost the game. It didn't matter. Whatever happens, what caused it. So that's what an excuse really is, and it's easy to get that mixed up and think that there's some justification in an excuse or a rationalization. A rationalization, the definition I use, is a true statement that has nothing to do with what happened. And that's why it's so hard to argue with. The alcoholic comes home and says, well, okay, here's what happened and it made me drink. Well, the hard thing to argue with is he's telling the truth. It is what happened. But that's not what made him drink. What made him drink is he's got an allergy to alcohol and he's got a blank spot. He's got a strange mental insanity, the alcoholic mind. That is the alcoholic mind. So to do step one, I have to get honest. I don't have to create. I've talked to thousands, literally, of alcoholics that have told me I would be glad to admit I'm alcoholic if I really thought I was. But I don't really think I am. Right. So if I truly am, then I'm not being honest somehow. It's not a blatant dishonesty. Denial's not an intentional dishonesty. It's just a reality. It's a reality that the alcoholic doesn't think he's alcoholic. Honest to God, doesn't think he is. Denial. It's the hardest thing about the illness. So if I'm going to get honest about alcoholism, I have to use the information in my past to help me get honest with that. Now, how can I do that? I know sponsors that have their alcoholic sponsees write a first step inventory. Does anybody have a big book? Can you look up page 31? This is one of the pieces of the puzzle that we can use in order to take this alcoholic inventory. The idea is, if I'm going to get honest about something, it's not just that I've been intentionally dishonest. I've got to start putting my past down on paper and looking at it to get honest. It's an enlightening thing when all these years an alcoholic has been making excuses and rationalizing every reason that he took a drink. Now he's going to just write down what happened without trying to judge it. What happened? Am I the kind of guy that's allergic to alcohol? Now, can I use your big book? If I'm the kind of guy that does this, and I've got symptoms of doing this, then I'm the kind of guy that has an allergy to alcohol. Here are some of the methods we've tried. Now, these are methods to control drinking. Who's trying to control drinking? Alcoholics are trying to control drinking. Other people aren't trying to control drinking. Drinking beer only, limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off forever, with and without a solemn oath, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums. We could add to the list ad infinitum. The reason the alcoholic should write down his experiences with how he tried to control his drinking, what all of the tricks were he did to make this work better, is because he's showing a picture of someone with an allergy to alcohol, or he wouldn't have been doing that. And the other list that he needs to make, so there's a control list, and then there's a insanity list, or a blank spot list. A list of the blank spots. How many alcoholics have you ever heard swear off forever? Everybody in this room can raise their hand. The alcoholic swears off forever. He starts drinking again, and he says, "This time I mean it," when he swears off the next time. As though he didn't really mean it that time before, and that's why he started drinking again. He's trying to comfort himself. If he really, honest to God, meant it. Bill W., the founder of AA, his Bible is in the in Dr. Bob's house in Akron, Ohio. And in his book, he's got where he swore and signed and dated that he was going to quit drinking forever. How many times? 4 times. He swore it in the back of his Bible 4 times. And every time he started again, he probably thought, I didn't really mean it that time. Well, we know, because we've been studying this, we know that the reason he started again because it had a blank spot. And he did mean it the time before. Every time somebody walks into your home group and says, "This time I mean it," you've got somebody that doesn't understand, "Yeah, last time I meant it too, and I failed because I'm powerless." So, the point is, we need to write down the times we swore off and what the result was. And we need to at least toy with the idea that when the alcoholic swore off, he meant it. The alcoholic that's writing the inventory needs to say, "I did swear off on July 4th, 1994, and later I said I didn't mean it because I started drinking again, but what if I did?" And then the other thing in a blank spot inventory is to look at the times the alcoholic started drinking again. And all we care about is the first drink. If you want to read what the big book says about this, page 34 to 43, there's an example of Jim, there's an example of the jaywalker, and there's an example of Fred. And all 3 of those are about writing down an inventory, or at least the idea is there of writing down an inventory of the blank spot that precedes the first drink. For an alcoholic to understand his true plight, He has to understand that number one, he's allergic to alcohol, and number two, he has blank spots, and he starts again. Now that's the action of step one. There's another half to step one, which is admitting that our lives had become unmanageable. That's not the topic we're covering tonight. And there's action for every single step. But just like the weightlifter that doesn't pick up the weights, going to meetings alone and listening and thinking about the action is not the action that accomplishes the healing. And here's the healing. Here's ism. Every alcoholic has one. Here's the alcoholic's spirit, and every alcoholic has one of those. The 12 steps are steps of spiritual recovery. We don't have to understand it, don't have to believe it, but we got a spirit, and it's like the weightlifting of spirit. The 12 steps are like the work of making our spirit stronger. Anybody, not just the alcoholic. For the alcoholic, with the use of the 12 steps, makes his spirit strong and gives his spirit a club. That's how I like to look at it. And now spirit is standing here with his club, and ism is sitting down here, and he tells ism, you sit down in that chair, keep your hand off that switch, or I'm going to beat the hell out of you with this club. The idea that Alcoholics Anonymous will keep an alcoholic from being tempted to drink is wrong. It does say in the big book that when tempted, if the alcoholic has achieved a spiritual fitness, I don't know what spiritual is, but I know how to do step 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's all I got to know. I don't have to understand spirit. I just got to know how to do it. If the alcoholic achieves a spiritual fitness, they will recoil from it as from a hot flame when tempted. Alcoholics Anonymous does not claim to protect a person from temptation, does not claim to treat the allergy, only claims to give the alcoholic mental defense every time tempted and takes ism out of the picture. And that's the treatment.